right, welcome back to another episode of the Boardroom. Today, I'm pretty excited about this conversation I have with me, Pete Russell of Velocity Advantage Capital. Welcome, Pete.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Good to see you, Chris.
You too. You want to just take just a couple seconds and give me like the 30-second elevator, like who you are, what you're doing now, and then we can hit some rabbit holes along the way.
Sure, let's do it. My background in real estate space is in REI and wholesaling. I got into that right about 10 years ago now. Always been interested in investing in that part of real estate, but I didn't know about wholesaling until about 10 years ago. So I was always on the sidelines watching other people do it, watching the shows, thinking you have to have a bunch of money or be a general contractor or whatever to get into the space. And then I found out about wholesaling through somebody just posting Facebook Lives back in the day about getting deals under contract, not having to do anything to it, not really putting a bunch of money into it, and then turn around and selling it. And so that definitely piqued my interest. I went to some local meetups here in Charlotte, started learning about it, and then just kind of failed forward with it. You know, back in the day, there weren't great coaches. There weren't like masterminds, or not nearly as much. There was a couple guys that had some stuff on YouTube, and you could pay for like little courses or watch their free stuff and just kind of piece things together. I had a business partner at the time, so we'd go out in the morning. First thing we learned about was bandit signs. So we were the guys out there before like the city patrol was out there, like 4:35 in the morning, putting signs on corners and things like that. And it worked. I mean, we got our first few deals that way, and got calls, got our reps in, all that good stuff. And then just like pretty rapidly grew it from there. Quit the 9 to 5 about 7-8 months into it, because just realized I was missing out on too many calls and leaving money on the table. Be sitting at a desk. I had a sales job over the phone. And over the years built out like a team, did stuff here locally in Charlotte, surrounding towns and cities for the first few years, and then built out a virtual team. At one point we had about 12 people in office, acquisitions, dispo, transaction coordination. We were doing deals in 5 or 6 different markets at the height of it.
That's great.
And so got a lot of deals under the belt, a lot of experience, ups, downs, highs, lows, seen a lot of changes in the market, even within that time for whatever different reasons. We were doing stuff in Texas where they would sometimes get a random hurricane or an ice storm. And then we went through COVID and all that stuff. Everything comes in cycles. Everything is ups, downs, highs, lows. You can never just do the same thing over and over again and be good. But it's been an experience, and transitioned recently into a much smaller team. Business partner and I went separate ways probably about 2 years ago now. And I just do deals. I still am active in the wholesaling space. I do deals here in Charlotte. And then I provide transactional funding nationwide for coming up on 2 years now for wholesalers. So we did a lot of double closings during COVID, selling to institutional buyers, that sort of thing. And within that process, I just realized there was nobody that was doing it that well or that consistent, and especially nationwide, since we were in different markets. So it's kind of like a light bulb moment of just like, hey, I think I can put together a really good product from a wholesaler for other wholesalers, make it super simple and not charge an arm and a leg. And let me see where I can take this thing. And it's taken off. It's done really well. Still working on growing our audience and getting in front of more and more investors, wholesalers for that. But yeah, that's kind of the time frame, is the last 10 years of just starting out and figuring things out and building up a team, and then focusing on my local market here. And then a big part and passion of it now is the transactional funding.
That's great. And I want to get into that transactional funding. I'll put it aside for a second. I have a question.
Sure.
We got into it, it sounds like, right around the same time period, because we're about 10 years in ourselves. My wife and I started the company, flipping primarily, and then we kind of had a similar progression where we started wholesaling, and really based on the need of volume. The marketing we had going out was warranting us to wholesale. What was life like before that? I'm always interested in that because, like in my case, I was a firefighter for 20 years. What real estate was not on my mind for the first 19 of those. So I know you mentioned you were in sales. What was the bridge? What got you into real estate to begin with?
Uh, yeah, that is a good question. I think I'd been intrigued by it. I don't know if I can really pinpoint one exact thing. I knew I didn't want to do the traditional side of it that much, even though at one point in time I actually got a license and I never really did anything with it. Um, I was just like, I knew that there was more out there, and I was intrigued by, kind of working for myself and being my own boss, but not having to jump through hoops and show people on listings and do that kind of thing. Um, and I just had heard through, I think, some friends and people that I knew that had been doing it for a while that were flipping and on the investment side and buy and hold. Even though I never dug deep and asked them a bunch of questions, I would just kind of hear their conversations and see that they were a little bit in more control of the process, and then they were also making more money on it too. That was a big intriguing thing of not just making 3% for doing a bunch of work and running around, that sort of thing. So the seed was kind of planted, but I never, again, I just kind of got my own way, own doubts of like, you got to have a rich family member, or you got to know people, or got to have all this money saved up so you can buy a property and then put the money into it and then sell it and then take it from there. So that's when I found out about wholesaling, and I was just like, hey, this is like a really low barrier of entry. Let me give this thing a shot. I can put the time and energy and effort into it all day long. And self-fund some of it. Doesn't have to be ridiculous. But I think it was always just like a little thing in my ear that was out there that every once in a while would like come back again. I did sales. I've been in the service industry, restaurant industry for a little bit. Back in the day, I did in my early 20s, I was like a plumber's apprentice and drove around with the owner of the company and crawled underneath houses, dug ditches. And I think I saw some of it then too, because we'd go in and do jobs for people that were flipping properties in neighborhoods in Charlotte. But I've done a lot of things, and I think I've realized I respect the heck out of blue collar hard work, and you can make a lot of good money that way and be your own boss. But I also have dug ditches in 100-degree weather in Charlotte in the middle of July and been like, I don't know if I want to do this for the next 30, 40 years of my life. Right. So I've been through it, gotten my hands dirty, and then I've been on the desk job side of things too, where the sales side of it, I made good money. I was in an air conditioned office and good environment, and like maxed it out as far as trying to be a top salesman, win trips, do this stuff. But that's also a grind too, and it becomes pretty monotonous. So I think all my background and everything has led to, once I found out about, again, the entryway of wholesaling and the spreads you can make, and you're in control and you put the effort in and you're a problem solver. I've always been good at that. It just kind of was everything that melded together. Yeah. So it was a lot of, hey, I've done all this other stuff. It's led me to here. The phone part of being on the phone for sales was huge, because I could talk and have a conversation with anybody. Right.
Right.
But I also realized too, like I said, I realized what I don't want to do for the rest of my life, kind of thing. So it was a combo of like skills and practice and figuring stuff out and being open to what's next. And then I think when I found it, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna take this and run with it. Like, let's see what I can really do to max this out. And it's changed my life for the better, right? For a lot of things, not just monetary wise, but mindset and all that too. So it's been a really cool process the last 10 years.
That's awesome. I think we've probably experienced the exact same thing. What do you think gives, and I think we probably have the same answer to this. I'd like to hear your answer. What do you think gives wholesaling a bad name? I feel like of all the things you can do in real estate, obviously you see the benefits of the ROI, whether you're flipping or getting into the wholesaling space. Wholesaling seems to be that evil twin sister. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think it's the barrier of entry is low, which is a positive thing and a good thing, gives a lot of people opportunity. But with that comes anybody and everybody getting into it and not taking it seriously, not respecting the seller's time, and people just, being unethical, just trying to make things happen. over promising, under delivering. I think the big part of it is just the marketplace gets saturated. You get people that hold deals up and never intend on closing at it. They stick a memorandum on it and hope to get $5,000-$10,000, and it messes things up for that seller who's in a tight spot who needs to sell it. So I think just a bunch of people flooding it. And then you have a lot of, like probably about 5-6 years ago is like the age of like the big time Lambo gurus and all that kind of stuff. They were just pitching courses and having big meetups and events and not really helping people wholesale like the right way and ethically, where you're a problem solver and you're getting compensated because you're helping people out. And then just marketing. I think people went real hard on just like cold calling, texting, blasting people, that sort of thing. And it got to be too saturated and too much. And I think after a while, just the consumer or the seller was just like, all right, like this is too much. There's too many things happening. There's too many bad apples. Yeah. So I think that's the part of it, is that low barrier of entry is great, but it also, I think, allowed a lot of things to happen where it gave wholesaling a bad.
It's a great lead into that's probably why assignments are slowly dying off little by little. And we're in a state where that affected us just recently. This past March of 2025, I'm in Pennsylvania, and they passed a law. I want to say it was either March or May. I want to say it was March, where we can't assign anymore. And this is where I feel like what you're doing now with your transactional funding is going to come into play more and more as this happens. What I find, I'll tell you our experience in the state, and then I'd like to get your feedback here. It seems like it's like traffic laws, right? You get on the highway, it's 55 miles an hour. If you're doing 70 and don't get caught by the cops, but you get there, all right, cool. It seems like that's how the law is being taken in this state, where title company by title company is treating it differently, which I find interesting. Where before we were able to take a contract and assign that contract to somebody else. They did away with that. Now we have to have a contract in place between the seller and ourselves. And then we end up either closing on the property in some cases, and then double closing it. In other cases, they're allowing a pseudo assignment, if you will, where we're able to terminate the contract with the seller on closing day and have the buyer then create a new contract at the same time, which I find really interesting. And well, the third way is just purely, there's some title companies that are still assigning, but I won't name names. But it's still getting done. They're still getting the properties closed. It doesn't make it right. But I mean, now that the law is in place, I think more and more people, as fines are thrown out, are probably going to sync up at some point, and everybody's going to have to double close.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time, because even North Carolina, we have it on the books. They haven't passed it yet. I guess it's kind of sitting on the floor. I think the North Carolina House passed it, but the North Carolina Senate hasn't, where you have to have a license. And even with that, there's gray areas where it's like, okay, am I cool to do this? Am I not good to do this? And everybody, it's a lot of the states and whatnot, it's not very black and white. Yeah. And so with all that being said, I didn't know that about the, hey, get it up until the day of closing, cancel, and then connect the two and that sort of thing. That's just like all that kind of stuff. Like, people are trying to figure out workarounds to make it happen and work. And I completely understand that. For me, like, the easiest way to protect your deal, because if you drop it at the last minute and then you have that buyer that's unethical and something happens there, or if your title company is still allowing it, but then one day you get a letter in the mail from the commission or whatever that looks like, and you're in trouble and that sort of thing. What none of these laws, again, you'd have to check locally because everything's a little bit different. And I'm not read up on every single like state law against wholesaling, what's going on now. But the majority of what I see is there's nothing about not being able to double close. Like, to the most like basic form of pretty much capitalism is to be able to buy something for cheaper and then turn around and sell it for more, right? Whether that's something on Facebook Marketplace, like a couch for a couple $100, if it's cars, if it's whatever. In this case, it's property, so it's got a bigger ticket value to it. It could be tens, hundreds of thousands, if not more. But it's the same concept of, hey, you're getting something when you double close it, you have a property, you have an agreement with that seller, you buy it, and then you just so happen to have an in buyer lined up and you turn around and sell it to them on the same day. That just protects you, keeps it black and white, and then you don't have to worry about like, is this okay? Is it not? Is my title company, are they allowing these closings now? And then I get people in Tennessee that hit me up, and recently is a big one where they're like, hey, we used to do pass through funding, now we can't do it anymore. Right. So I don't know if it's something they're just now like pushing back against. Right. But with all the rules, regulations, and everything like that, it's just like this simple way to do it and just move forward on it is to be able to buy it, control it, turn around and sell it. It just so happens with the double close, it's on the same day, and we do it nationwide. As long as the closing company is okay with it being same day, we don't do any gap funding right now where it's buy it, hang on to it for like a few days or a week and turn around and sell it. We just do same day. But it also, you really are a buyer, so you don't have to be like BSing your way through that. You're using our capital, but you are the buyer. And then it's two separate deals, two separate contracts. So you don't have to worry about your seller having an issue with it. But the big thing I always say is, in being in this industry for a long time and doing hundreds and hundreds of wholesale transactions, I'm a little bit more worried about my buyer. The buyers are savvier. The buyers are looking at what's going on. They usually, when you do an assignment, they want to see your contract with the seller, which I understand because you're assigning that over to them. Sure. And sometimes they'll push, like you can redact certain things or whatever, but sometimes they'll push. They're like, I want to know what the contract price is, what all that stuff is. Or as it gets closer to the day of closing on the HUDs usually go out a few days before closing. If they're like, hey man, Chris is making 60K on this thing, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to put time, energy, and effort into it and then put it back on the market. And I may only make 25, 30K. Like, I bet you I can go back to Chris and get at least like 10,000 off of this, right? Like I can make up something like, there's mold in the crawl space. There's whatever. I've had this happen to me. And I've had buyers that don't say anything on that deal, but then the next one I send them, they're like, hey, Pete, you made $50,000 on the deal we did together 4 months ago. Why don't you give me a little bit of a break? And I'm just, in my head, I'm just like, well, you haven't been paying my overhead and marketing since I did that deal. Right. And then when you buy it, turn around and flip it, your in buyer, your conventional buyer, they're not going to look. And if they come back and they're like, well, you only got it for this much and you're making this much, like, you're not going to care. You're just going to be like, this is what it is. Right. So to double close it now with regulations and whatnot is a great way to not have to worry about that. And then if you're making a decent profit on it, my floor on that is like 20K or above. I tell anybody, like, probably want to start looking at a double closing it. It just protects you all around. It's just clean and simple that way.
It helps too because I have a personal experience with that, specifically 20,000. Early on when we first started, it was probably our second wholesale that we did. We picked up a property for 20,000 and assigned it for 20 more. So we sold it to the buyer for 40,000. And this can be spoken to on both sides of the transaction. If there's no transparency or no relationship built, then any miscommunication or non-communication can bite you back. And it almost did in this case. We ended up salvaging the deal, but sitting at the table, he looked at the closing documents and was like, wait a second. I'm paying you $20,000 for this property. You're only buying it for $20,000. When my logic to him was, and he was immediately upset. My logic was, well, when I sold it to you for 40, the 40 worked for you. But when he found out I was making 100% on top of my sales price, all of a sudden upset him. Now we went out in the hallway and we worked that out. But in hindsight now, I took that moving forward and I was transparent with all my buyers. We didn't necessarily double close back then, but I made sure that they were on board with us making money because this is my business. Now, the flip side of that, I will say, especially with the regulations in place, what makes and I left this part out, what makes your product more attractive, especially in a state like ours, is there's a 30-day clause now in the Pennsylvania contracts. If your contract says and or assigns, if it doesn't say and or assigns, it doesn't matter. It's treated as a regular binding contract. It states in this law that if it says and or assigns, it's not recognized as binding until day 31. So you can go 30 days. The seller can back out with no recourse, even if you have a buyer lined up for it, which I think opens up a whole can of worms, because if they find more money, if somebody approaches them, they can just back out of your contract and sell it to somebody else for a little bit more money, and there's nothing you can do about it. So the best way to do it is to line up, I think, for me personally, would be to line up with somebody like you, wipe that end-or signs off the contract, close on it ourselves, and then make sure that we have control of the property.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't know about that. That's wild. Because so then the seller at any point in time could just back out. Like you could be putting all that work in and everything, and if you put and/or signs within that 30 days, it's not binding, right? Or they could go with another buyer.
Correct. And
Yeah,
the interpretation of that, just like what I was speaking about before, each title company interprets that differently. So I was on a call with a title company last week, as a matter of fact, that their interpretation of it is that the 30-day clock does not start until you have a buyer lined up and that second contract signed. So now, look how much time, maybe it takes you 2 weeks to find that buyer. Now you're 6 weeks minimum before it's binding. That's, why wait 6 weeks? This is, now you're turning into a flip almost instead of a wholesale.
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and more again, state to state's going to be a little bit different, and then it's hey, which closing company accepts it? How do they interpret it? That sort of thing. But if you can take and/or signs off there, because you're like, once I find a buyer, like I'm good to go, and I'm just going to double close it. That alleviates all that. But yeah, that's wild. The story you were telling about is a 20K property. I mean, if you removed yourself from that deal, and if that end buyer would have found that property for 40K, they probably would have been ecstatic, right? But the moment they start counting your pockets and seeing what you're making, they can tell you all day long. And I get people that, like, I post a lot of stuff on social, and I'm an admin in some groups, so I'll post stuff every once in a while about transactional funding. And most of the time it's well received, but I'll get a couple people that give me pushback, and they're like, it's just, you don't know how to prep your seller correctly, or I've been doing this for years and I've never had trouble. I always prep my end buyer. And I'm like, that's great if maybe you do have that magical power where you can erase people looking into what you're making and having an issue with it. But that's just one buyer that you work with. I guarantee you, if you have a big pool of buyers, which you should, because every investor wholesaler should have multiple buyers that they're putting properties in front of. Not all of them are going to be the same. And a lot of them are just, it's human nature to be like, man, this guy's making this much money. Like I have, all of a sudden you have an issue with that. Doesn't matter how much you prep them. Doesn't matter what your relationship is. I've cut off relationships with buyers because they've come back and tried to retrade on me, or they, not even saw my assignment fee, but they just didn't really follow through with what they were supposed to do, or wouldn't put down, non-refundable money. So it's just like, if I can't take you serious, then we're not going to work together. But I have had it happen to me multiple times where buyers are like, hey, cut me a deal on this one, or, oh man, you're killing it. But what they see Chris and they see Pete, they're like, oh, they did 5 minutes worth of work, they're making 20, 30, 40, $50,000. It's like, no. My marketing overhead budget is way up there every month. And it's some months it's, hardly getting a deal through. It's lean and mean. Other months it's great. But I have a business to run. I have people to pay. It's not like I'm taking that money and running to Vegas every time that I make a big fee. And that's a $20,000 fee. Like I'm sure we've been in the business long enough where you make some really good ones that are great for your business. If it's 50, 60, the most I've ever made is 6 figures on the nose for an assignment fee. It was 100K. And it's like, that goes a long way into be able to like support my team and pay for more marketing and do all sorts of stuff. It's just not going straight in your pocket. So they kind of see like, oh, these guys are making a quick buck. Let me reduce some of that. That's not fair. But they don't see the back end and all the overhead and stuff that we deal with.
That's the thing. It's all perspective. I've used this analogy before where, because on social media, everybody puts the honeymoon out there. Like, this is great. They'll put their checks out there, and this, maybe driving down the street, and I knocked on these 3 doors today, and it makes it look easy on social media. When your buyer maybe has only flipped, and maybe they're not doing this full time. Maybe it's a side hustle for them, and they're buying from wholesalers, and they don't see, like you're saying, they don't see the grind in the background. So if they were to do it, they'd respect it more. And the analogy I use is, you can go to the grocery store and buy a steak for 30, 40 bucks, come back and cook it. Maybe it doesn't come out as good but you know, more than willing to go to a restaurant and pay $100 for the same steak because somebody put the work behind it and cooked it for you. It's the same idea on a lesser scale.
Percent. No, and then why do you go to a restaurant? So you don't have to cook it. So they hopefully cook it better and it's kind of served up on a plate for you, right? Yeah. And that's what you do as a wholesaler. You're like, hey, I'm going to go out there and do one of the hardest things in this business. I'm going to cold outreach for the most part. You might have some warm inbound stuff, but pay for that even more for marketing if you're doing like PPC, PPL, whatever that looks like. I'm going to go out and I'm going to source these deals off market. I'm going to have the back and forth. I'm going to have the conversations. I'm going to go on an appointment. I'm going to have some of them fall out. I'm going to, work through air problems with family members and be the mediator. Like, that's a lot and it's tough. So it's just like, if I'm going to put all this together and then on top of that, bring it to you and wrap it in a nice little bow where it makes sense for you, where you got your next project, you can put your guys to work, you got your next flip. Like, you shouldn't be counting my pockets. And again, the moment you do, the way I treat it is like, I double close now all the time. Obviously I have a business around it, so it's not an issue. But even before, I would just tell them like, hey, if this is going to be an issue moving forward, like, I'm not going to send you deals anymore. Like, I'm just going to cut you off from that. Because that's the flippers, the buy and hold guys, the contractors, they work with wholesalers because they are not good at the marketing side of it, or they realize it's a lot of work and they don't want to build a whole team out around it. So they rely on and depend on, not all of them, but most of them, for just people to source those deals. So that friction, that back and forth, it's always there because people want to get the best deal possible at all times. My biggest thing is, as that middleman, as that wholesaler that works really hard, like, protect that. And the way to do that is just double close it. You have a contract with your seller, you have a contract with your end buyer, and you just tell them, like, that's the biggest question I get from people is they're like, what do I tell my end buyer? Because it sounds like whatever. I'm like, just tell them you're double closing it. Just be like, hey man, if you really like this for the price point, send me an offer where I'm the seller, you're the buyer. Put some non-refundable on there so I know that you're serious, and let's make it happen. And I never get pushback on that. They're just like, okay, cool. So you just straightforward, straight up. If you do start getting pushback and they start wanting to see what you have it on, it's just like, that's not a good buyer for you. Right. So
what does that process look like? If I have a property and I want to consider transactional funding, how difficult is that to do the entire process?
Yeah. So I just try to make it as simple as possible. Easy. What I would want to do back in the day when I was trying to find transactional funding and I had to like call people up and deal with all sorts of crazy stuff, people leaving me high and dry, whatever. So I just have a link and I can create it and I can give it to you, and you can probably just drop it when you post this, but it'll just be a link. And that will go to a landing page where it literally just says submit a deal. And now I ask anybody, just because we're super busy now, our process is don't submit a deal until you have a contract with the seller and a buyer. But you'll just click submit a deal and it'll walk you through it. Like, it just asks for your info. So we have your contact info. It'll ask for the subject property address. So whatever you have under contract, sometimes people love to put their home address or office address. And I'm like, that doesn't help us, and we'll get it figured out. And then just approximate closing date. It asks you a few just like high level questions, right? And all of it is flexible and we can edit it. Nothing ever closes on time. That's fine. It asks for the amount that you have the deal under contract. I understand if you have a deal under contract for $200,000, you'll probably pay a little bit more because you're covering closing costs for the seller. But it just asks for like high level, just like basic info. And you submit that all on the site electronically. And at the very end of it, we do have now our one upfront fee, again, just because we're busy and we were getting a lot of people that submitted stuff and then just disappeared and we never heard from them again. In order for us to like prioritize like who's legit, who we're working with, we have an initiation fee. It's $250. It's like when you submit your deal, that's why you need to have both with the contract and seller, like good to go. Sure. You fill it out, pay the $250. You can pay it with a credit card, ACH, whatever. And then you're going to get a call and an intro from us, and we're going to introduce ourselves. And then we're just going to say, hey, can you connect us with who's ever handling your closing? If you're in a title state, an escrow officer. If you're in a attorney state, a paralegal. And then really most of our communication from there is between us and that closing company. Because closing company will let us know like, hey, it got pushed, hey, it's delayed, or hey, it's happening on time, and all that good stuff. So most of our communication is back and forth with them. So you go to this site, submit the request, introduce us to closing company, and then on the day of closing, we're the last piece of the puzzle. Like we wait, and again, our communication is with the closing company for the most part, so we're not bugging you, but we wait till everybody's signed. The seller, the end buyer, if you as the wholesaler you're going to buy it, turn around and sell it. So you're going to have some docs to sign too. And then we wait till your end buyer puts their money in escrow. We want to make sure that they're fully committed, that they're not going anywhere, that it's going to close on the same day. Once everybody's signed, once money is there, then we just wire whatever you need cash to close the full amount. We just wire that amount to the closing company. So you don't have to pay like 10% or 20% or bring half of it or anything like that. We wire that full amount, and then they just close them back to back. They'll close that first one. We call it the A to B between the seller and you. And then the second one, the B to C, they'll close those just like back to back, and then they'll disperse funds. You'll get your profit. We get our money back along with our fee. And then it's just on to the next one.
See, that's great, especially in our state now. To save us 4 to 5 weeks, like absolutely, that's something that I would definitely consider. And I'll take that link and I'll throw that in the show notes for sure. I know we're running up against some time here, but I had one last question that is relevant, but kind of off track a little bit. My daughter, who is 19, just completed her first real estate transaction. She's been learning from us. I'll say she's been learning from us since she was 9. She's been with us in the car, not in the car seat, but with us in the car, going to these houses for all these years, and now she's struck an interest in it. The deal that she went through, which I'm probably going to do a podcast episode with her if she will get on with me, because I wanted her to tell her story here. It's she's making a phenomenal profit on it. It's not your everyday profit. What she wants to do with a portion of that money is lend in some facet. And at 19 years old, she has no experience with it. And honestly, I haven't lent myself. I've borrowed from lenders. But what would be some advice that you would give somebody like her just getting into that space?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, that's awesome. At 19, I was like working at a car wash and happy to make 50 or $100 in a day. I wish I would have known about this way back then. So that's cool. I mean, even though you guys are in it, it takes something special for somebody to be like, okay, now I'm going to get involved and figure it out myself. So that's really cool. So this is the only lending that I've ever done is just the transactional. I think with anything is if she's looking to do something like this or something, even if it's a little bit longer, if it's like some like fix and flip type loan or something like that, just some private money, I would say just make sure that if it's private money, just like probably do something local first, right? Where you guys can put your eye, like if you have another investor that's like, hey man, I got a great project. Like Chris is going to go out there and be like, let me run the numbers. Let me look at it in person. Let me see what's going on. I've talked to other people where they've start putting money to work and they're like lending in like different parts of the country where they don't know the market or anything like that. And I'm like, how do you know what's going on? And if you've never walked a property, how can you be confident in doing that? The only way I can do it nationwide is because again, I'm the last piece of the puzzle. So I'd say do something local there where you guys are comfortable with the market, and then even try to find somebody that's been doing it for a while that, just like with coaching and anything else, when you get involved, like you can save so much time, energy, and effort and headaches and losses if you work with somebody that's like experienced and knows what they're doing. I think that would be a big part of it, to not just jump in and just try to figure it out as you go, because then you start losing money pretty quickly that way too. Right. And if she has any questions about like transactional or whatever, like happy to even just show what we do and our process and that sort of thing. There's a few like safeguards and steps. You have to worry about wiring instructions. That's a big thing. If you wire to the wrong place, it's not coming back like a credit card, that sort of thing. But I think really just to figure out what she wants to lend exactly and do, and then just find somebody that's already doing it and be like, hey, would you help out, or we need to pay you a little bit or cut you in on this deal, or try to figure it out that way rather than just getting overwhelmed and doing it all on your
Right. No, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm
own. Yeah.
excited to see where she takes this because, like you said, at 19, I was not in a position where she is right now. So I'm really excited where she can take this, and she seems to have a truly like genuine excitement to get into the business. So that's cool to see too. It's not like when you do something and you don't come from this background and you're successful in it, like you want your kids to do something successful too. And sometimes that can cause you to push that on them. And we didn't want to be those parents. I think for a period of time we couldn't help but be that, but we've let off and we got to give the freedom. But when we gave the freedom, she came back to us and she's like, I'm interested in this. I want to learn it. So I'm excited to be able to teach it to her.
Yeah, that's awesome. My dad was blue collar in construction, and I was like, don't want to do that. And my mom was a nurse, and I respected it, and it was great. But neither one of those could I be like hands on with them, right? Like they went off and worked and came back, and there was no opportunity to do anything like that. But even like you said, when you present that, a lot of kids will just be like, that's what mom and dad do. Like I'm not really interested. But for her to like be involved in it and have you guys to be there with her as parents and mentors is really, really cool. And that also for her to be like, hey, I'm making a good profit on this, I want to put it to use and make more money off of it. I would have been like, okay, where am I going? How can I spend this money as quick as possible? Like I burned through everything for a long time. It was just like how quickly I worked hard, but it's like as quick as I made it, I would try to spend it and never really thought about like, oh, I can make more money off of this. So that's really cool to hear, and you have to keep me posted on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the exposure. One last thing, the exposure we had, well, the exposure she had is early on in our flips. We would give her an allowance, and maybe she was 10 or 11 years old, but we would give her an allowance, and we would tell her, you can go to the store and spend this on toys or whatever it is you're looking for, or you can give us a portion of that back, and we'll make you a lender on our flip. And then we maybe go buy some staging material, maybe buy a lamp or something like that, and say that's your lamp. When we cash out of this flip, we're going to give you your $5 plus $2 back. So she made $7. So then the next time she got an allowance, we say, well, you do want the whole thing. I think I have you muted there. Sorry. Do you want the whole thing? Or do you want to give us a portion of that back and then you can make some money on it? And she did that a good couple of times. So she started calling herself a lender at 12, which I thought was funny. But
that's awesome.
Here we are. Maybe it stuck with her.
It obviously has, and she probably realized like I don't have to spend all this, and what I don't spend it on, I'm actually getting money back from it. It's a crazy thing. Like we're not taught that kind of stuff in like school or anything like that. We're not taught a lot about finance or how you can make your money work for you. So I think it did, even if it's just like subconscious, it probably stuck with her a little bit. But that's really, really cool. Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
Awesome. Well, Pete, thanks for being on the boardroom. I know I'm going to put the link down in the show notes, but for anybody that's listening or watching, where can they find you?
Instagram, Facebook. Just look me up, Pete Russell, and you'll see my stuff. I got a bunch of posts and stuff just about what I do, transactional funding, some wholesaling stuff, and then just post some random stuff from time to time too. But I'm on there. And then just recently hopped on TikTok as well and starting to put stuff on there. Never thought I'd have a TikTok account, but yeah, it's pretty fun. I got a whole team that I just send everything over to and they chop it up and put it out there. But Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I have some short stuff on YouTube as well, just like little breakdowns and whatnot. And then the website is just velocityadvantagecapital.com. It's got some videos and things on there too, but people can hit me up, DM me. I'm really good about getting back to people. If they have any questions and whatnot too, I'll talk to anybody and everybody and answer those. But yeah, feel free to just hit me up and reach out, and love to connect with anybody. Again, I fund the deals nationwide, small deals, medium deals, big deals. We've done a $2 million one last year, which was pretty cool. Some guy made $800,000 on an RV park.
Awesome.
So yeah, happy to connect, and thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.